Hey, this is Colin from Blackjack Apprenticeship, and I'm joined by my co-host Joe748 and our guest Johno. Johno, how are you doing?
Hey, doing great.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Joe748, how are you doing?
Doing good. Since I'm not in Vegas, I have my unsponsored Slingshot Coffee cold brew to my left here. Again, not sponsored.
Hashtag no sponsor.
Someone messaged me recently and said that they bought a bunch of cans of it. So maybe we should be sponsored, but we're not.
Yeah, they might literally offer us pennies to sponsor them. Probably not. Probably not. So we're going to stick to what we know, which is Advantage Play. And that's what Johno's here for. Johno, can you tell us how you got involved in Advantage Play and when you got involved?
Well, I was in Minnesota about a little over 30 years ago, and I was at on a $1 table near Minneapolis and had my $20 bankroll with me. And I walked in, and by myself, I was playing against a dealer, and I lost it in about 2 minutes. And I was so angry. I said, "What happened? You took all my money. I didn't win a hand." And he goes, "Well," the dealer said, "Well, you don't know how to play." I said, "Well, what do you mean I don't know how to play? How do I win at this game?" And he goes, "Well, you need to learn how to count cards." I said, "Well, I can't do that." He said, "Well, that's what you got to do." I just went, okay. And it really, I left. I had all my $20 was gone. And I thought, well, there's got to be some way to do this. And it just flicked the switch in me. And I became interested and bought the world's greatest blackjack book. At the time, that was the big thing to buy. And I learned the high-op 2 system. And that's how I got started.
What were you doing at the time when you decided you wanted to learn how to count cards?
I was a full-time music teacher in Los Angeles public schools. And it was just kind of just a hobby kind of side thing. And I was doing that full time. And I was just kind of trying to do blackjack when I could on the weekends or if I was on vacation, and just trying to see if I could make it work. And it really wasn't working. It was just a break even for many, many years.
So where did you even play in the LA area, or did you drive into Vegas?
Oh yeah, I drive to Vegas and, many times into Vegas or fly up to Reno or play around here in LA. I'd play at these really bad places to play in LA, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody, any AP. I thought I'd play there anyways, 6 to 5.
That could explain the break-even.
Oh yeah,
game
yeah.
at best.
Yeah, that and a lot of other things, just not really having basic strategy down sort of pretty well, but not good enough. No sense of bankroll requirement or absolutely no idea about risk of ruin.
How long were you break even?
I would say about 20 years, over 20 years of just kind of not really being able to make this as any kind of even a part-time income. I was just drinking when I shouldn't have been drinking and just kind of partying and just really, really being a gambler instead of a serious card counter or a serious AP. And so the casinos really loved having me around because they, I think, figured out that I was counting cards, but not playing at the level that was any kind of a threat to them at all. So they were happy. I never really got backed off. I did get one big back off, which we can talk about later. But in 20 years, it was a rarity to get any kind of a back off.
That's interesting. When I first got into card counting, there was a guy. I mean, I was 23, and he was, 20 or 30 years older than me, and he could count faster than I could. But he just didn't follow the system. And I remember one time playing next to him, and it was this monster count. And I was like, "Oh, why didn't you raise your bet?" And I thought maybe he knew something I didn't. He's like, "Oh, I keep the count, but that stuff doesn't really work anyway." He was, maybe similar to where you were at this part where the casino probably knew that the guy next to me was counting, but they knew he wasn't a threat. I don't know how they would have known that, or maybe they just let him play anyway, but he definitely wasn't a threat to the casinos. And you did that for a couple decades. What did you tell other people? Did you say, "Well, I'm a card counter"?
No, I didn't really talk about being a card counter to anybody because it wasn't something that was successful. I mean, it's kind of hard to say you're a card counter when you're not really turning any kind of profit, even at a part-time level. So it was frustrating because I kept thinking, well, maybe I just have to count faster. Maybe I don't really have this down. But I mean, looking back on it, I certainly was counting good enough to do it. But there was just so many problems with chasing losses. When I'd lose, I just throw out these bets that were way too big to try to win it back right away. And I just had the sense that I couldn't have a losing trip. I couldn't go to Vegas for 4 days and come back on any kind of a losing trip. That just was not okay. That was how I thought. It's a real problem to the game.
How and when did that change?
Well, I finally just stopped doing it. I was trying to do this part-time thing as a card counter, and for about 20 years, then I just stopped. I said, okay, this is enough of this, and I took a break from it. And it was right around the time of the pandemic where I stumbled across the videos that you guys make and started looking at this Blackjack Apprentice program. And that was really what got me back interested into the idea of trying to make this blackjack thing work. And when I really looked at the videos and looked at the program, and I started thinking, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe this could work. Maybe it could be different this time. And that's really what changed everything.
And so you had problems with both playing strategy and betting strategy. You said your counting was pretty good. Was it difficult to fix all those things, or since you had spent 20 years, doing 90% of it, 80% of it, was it pretty easy?
Yeah, there was just some things I had to fix with in terms of the counting, but I think most of it really had to do with just rethinking this idea of bankroll management. Like I said, for example, just way over betting hands just because the count was going high. I didn't have a sufficient bankroll, first of all. Most of the time, I rarely was in a casino or with enough of a bankroll to make it work, where I couldn't handle any swings, where I'd be out of money, then it's time to go home. You got no money. That happened several times. Just drinking when I shouldn't have been drinking at all, and I don't drink today for many years. That's really helped a lot, made a big difference. And I think so many other things too. The risk of ruin, that was really a big change for me. This whole idea of really basing your bets on the risk of ruin, that was really key to figuring out how much you're going to bet. And I just had no idea about this. I just thought I had to win, and it was about luck. The skill was kind of almost a secondary, whereas now I understand that it really is about skill and patience, and there's a lot of other things going on.
And what about the game selection? Some of those, was it difficult to say, oh, I can't play this card room up the street or this 6-5 table that's sitting empty? Or what? Had you spent enough time away from the tables, it wasn't too tough?
Yeah, I finally had to not go to those games. I learned that, you really can't be a winning player playing at some of these, well, basically all the casinos in Los Angeles area. And you have to get out of town to play in some of these tribal places. In terms of Southern California, San Diego area. So yeah, that was a big thing, getting out of these bad games, and also just avoiding games where it's too crowded. I would play it with full tables, and really slow, really slow games where it just was just going on and on and on, and couldn't seem to get any kind of profit going because the tables were too crowded.
I kind of want to go back to, I had a question about your betting structure when you were kind of in your gambling phase. Before there was CVCX or pro betting software back then, what was sort of the recommended bet spread that the books were telling you to do at the time?
It was pretty much a 1-4 or 1-8 spread.
Shoe game?
Shoe games, single deck. They had single deck back then, a lot of single decks, a lot of double decks too. But yeah, it was pretty much 1-4, 1-8, or 1-16. But I wasn't doing that aggressive of a spread. I was generally sticking with a 1-4 or 1-8.
Another thing someone can fall into is a 1-4 would work on a single deck, but it just would not be enough on a shoe game. And if you're not using any kind of software and you're just kind of reading a book and it's just telling you 1-4 or 1-8, then you think that applies to all 6-deck games, no matter what the rules are or the cut. And
you probably played through negative counts and other decisions that.
Oh, I keep playing. I'd look at I'd be playing on very negative counts and just thinking I could still bet and win. And yeah, it just, I don't do that anymore. I stay off of the negative counts. And that is another thing that I learned in BJA. It's just to not play these negative counts because it's just, It's too expensive. The rent is too high.
What was that like to get all the information that you'd been lacking for, 20 years of playing and having misinformation about basic strategy and betting and bankroll management and game selection? Was it, yeah, what was that like to fill in all those gaps or to see all those errors that you weren't aware of?
I think it really gave me a peace of mind about it because, before I got into BJA, it was pretty stressful going to a casino, knowing that I've got, just with the way I thought about it, the way I thought it was just stressful, and almost a panicking situation because I was just a gambler, and I thought it was just about that, about getting lucky. And when I really learned all the details of what you guys are presenting in BJA, it was a calming effect. I felt confident. I felt much calmer. I felt more sure of myself in a casino environment. I could handle the losses. I could handle the big swings. I didn't get so excited about a big win or devastated by a big loss. And I was able to keep going. It was all of that stuff put together that just really made it much more fun to play. And it really made all the difference in the world for what I'm doing.
Had you ever gotten involved with BJ21 when Stanford Wong's website?
Yeah, I did a little bit, not too much. I would find some places to play based on that data, but I didn't really get into that very much. No.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting because I was a part of that when I got started, but still there were a lot of gaps that I had to have friends fill in for me. Even though I had read a couple books, there were still gaps that had to be filled in by people more knowledgeable, or I would try to ask on the forum and sometimes get kind of talked down to or whatever. So I was just curious, to be involved. There were other resources during that time, but maybe they just didn't fill in all the gaps for you as well. So you start fixing your game. What happened after that?
I had a couple of weeks where I was kind of on a losing cycle, and I, didn't panic about that. Stuck with it. And then things started to really turn around, and I started noticing I'm getting backed off pretty regularly here. I would play maybe 20 hours a month or so, and I'm getting one or two back-offs every month that I'm playing. And that never used to happen. That I just wasn't getting that much attention or really getting backed off at all. And I started noticing, okay, I'm winning pretty consistently here. 65% of the time I'm winning, I'm having winning sessions. That consistency of winning was really surprising to me because it was actually seeing this happen in reality, seeing real money instead of just playing by myself at home or in a boot camp. I'm actually seeing real money happening on the tables. So that was exciting to see that.
I'm sure you had some losing streaks. What was the longest losing streak you had after you kind of fixed your game?
I was at an all-time high up until about a few months ago, and then I just got clobbered for a good month or so. But it wasn't too bad, and I'm back with it again, back near my all-time high again. Not quite there, but I noticed a big drop, and it came back. That was believing in the math, believing in what I've learned and how to stay calm when things get rough. And I got a lot of help from other APs in the program about how to handle that losing cycle, and it really helped me out a lot.
Was there anything when you're kind of relearning card counting for the second time? Was there anything where you saw a red and you were kind of nervous about the information, or being like, "Oh no, I don't know if this is right. I don't want to go through another 20 years of..."
I just felt so much better about my whole game when I put the whole thing together, everything, that it really gave me some confidence that I didn't have. And so I'd say, I felt really good about it. I didn't have, there wasn't really anything that was concerning me. I had a bankroll that I didn't have before. I had enough money to actually do this, whereas for 20 years, I hardly ever had enough money. Well, I never really had an adequate bankroll. And now that I actually had one and I could see how important that was to being a winning player. That gave me some peace of mind. It really helped everything.
Yeah, so not only did you have better betting strategy information, but you also had a bigger bankroll than you did for that 20 years when you're gambling.
Significantly better. That really takes the stress off, you know? If you don't have the bankroll and you're trying to play blackjack, it's not going to work.
And at what point did you come to a boot camp? Was that after COVID?
It was right around the time of COVID. I think it was 2020, something like that.
Yeah, when we opened up again. And what was that experience like, or were there any big takeaways from attending the boot camp? This isn't a sales plug. I'm just genuinely interested.
Yeah, some of the things that were really great was just talking to some of the pro APs, like SD1 and Loud and Often and all you guys. I talked to Joe for a while, and it was just that was so valuable, that information. I say especially what SD1 told me about Vegas. It was really valuable, and that was a big takeaway. But I think the biggest takeaway was getting tested out by you and SD1 and you guys showing me, okay, your game's pretty good, but you got this problem, you got this little problems here and there. And so I didn't pass out the test out. I didn't pass. I failed, and it really bothered me that I didn't quite make it. But that motivated me. That motivated me to really look at what I needed to look at, and to look at it and to face up to it, to face up to my shortcomings in my game. And I went home and I just studied like crazy, and I did the work that I needed to do. And, later on I went to another boot camp and actually, tested out with Loud and Often. And that felt really great to finally fill in those holes that you guys pointed out in the first boot camp. And to be able to pass that test out with Loud and Often was wonderful.
How much practice time did you have to add on in between those two test outs to pass, if you had to guess?
Oh, it was a few hours a day. I mean, I was putting in a couple hours a day for several weeks just to try to really get it down. So, yeah.
And what about before, how did you even know you had a winning card count? Like, you were counting correctly when you didn't get tested out during that 20-year streak? Like, did you just sort of have to count the cards at home on your own to double check your work? Or did you have someone?
No, there was nobody. I was totally by myself for all that time. I had no colleagues at all. I didn't have any concept of being in any kind of community. It was a pretty lonely time, and I would just sort of trust my own playing at home and just seeing what my results were at home, and that was it.
And you said that you started getting backed off more after working on your game a bunch. Did that discourage you?
No, it made me realize that I was onto something. It didn't discourage me at all. It made me realize that, okay, they were finding me as some kind of threat to them, even though I'm not really a threat. It didn't discourage me. It motivated me to even get to do it more, and I think to get even more determined to be a winning player.
If Joe748 and I ever open a casino, we'll let people play a 1-4 bet spread at it all day, especially if they play through negative counts, and especially if it's a 6-5 table.
Oh yeah.
So did you have to learn how to navigate heat and kind of the art side of card counting more? How to get the hours in? Yeah,
that's something I'm still working on now. I think the art side is still part of my game that I'm trying to get better at. And for all these times before I got into BJA, I would just be like totally serious, focusing on trying to play, and I just looked like a card gun. Now I just try to be really friendly. I try to be really nice to the waitresses, to the dealers, to the pit boss. I try to start up conversations with them about random things, whatever I can do right off the bat. As soon as I see the pit boss, I just start some kind of conversation with them. And I'm able to pay attention to the count as well. And that's kind of what I do. It's just being talkative and being friendly. And I wasn't like that before at all.
Now, For that 20 years you were break even, you had no back-offs, but I think I remember you saying you did have one back-off. Could you tell that story, that one back-off you had?
Oh yeah, that was right away when I first started. It was in '92, and I had my typically small bankroll. I was at the El Cortez, and it was about 10 o'clock at night, pretty empty on a Wednesday, I think, and I was just playing a single deck there, and I don't know, I was up a couple $100, and the pit boss came over and just said, "No more blackjack." And I went, okay, picked up my chips and cashed out. And I thought, well, I'll just go back when the shift changes. I'll go back maybe at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I waited a few hours and came back about 1:30 in the morning. Same thing, different table, but the same type of spread. I'm betting a $5 table, and I'm up about maybe, I don't know, $300, something like that. And all of a sudden, there's two giant security guards come up next to me. They go, "Sir, we're going to ask you to go and cash out your chips now, and we'll walk you to the cage." And I just said, "Well, is there a problem?" He said, "Well, we don't know if there's a problem, but our boss just wants to have a word with you, and we'll walk you to the cage now." And I start walking with them, and they go, "Well, we really appreciate you being so cooperative with us. It really makes our job so much easier, when customers do this. And so we really appreciate you being so cooperative, and hope you're having a good night." I'm going, "Yeah, what's going on?" I go, "Well, we don't know. We don't know what the deal is, but our boss just wants to talk with you. So we're just doing our job." So I cash out my chips, and they go, "Well, sir, we're going to have to ask you to come with us to our office." I don't know anything, so it's about 2 o'clock in the morning by this time. I go into the office, and they close the door, and there's 4 more big giant security guards in there. And they go, "Well, we need your ID." And I go, "Well, I don't have my ID." And they all kind of got up and walked around me and said, "Look, you need to give us your ID, or we're going to make things very difficult for you very quickly." And I've just got these giant guys around me, and I just go, "Okay." And I pull out my ID, and they had me hold it up by my face, and they took a Polaroid shot, and then they read me the Trespass Act. You're no longer allowed to be on these properties. And if you do, you'd be cited for trespassing. And that was it. They opened the door, and they let me out the door, and they closed the door, and I'm standing on the loading dock at 2 in the morning, and I had to jump down from the loading dock, and I just went, "What the hell is this about?" And so I just walked out the loading dock and walked across the street to the Western. And of course, there's nobody in the Western. There's one dealer at one table, and I walk in there. I tried to buy in, and the boss just walks up to me and goes, "You're not welcome to play blackjack here. You can't play." And I go, "Well, there's nobody here." "Yeah, but you can't play." I just went, okay. So that was a big traumatic event for me.
The El Cortez, backing off wannabe card counters for 50 years.
I could also see that giving you like the false confidence to continue. If that happened really early on, you're like, "Yeah, this is totally working. They're afraid of me,
Right. That's exactly what it did. Yeah.
Everyone, don't go to the El Cortez right away before you finish your training.
That's right.
To get backed off as confirmation.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people do go to El Cortez just to experience a back off, like a rite of passage. I don't really know if it's worth it, but good to know that their ways were the same 30 years ago as they are today. So, how many hours have you played since your test out?
I think I've got about 670 hours in.
Okay, so not a small amount. And how did you get in those hours while still working full time?
Well, good question. I would try to go on the weekends. I would call in sick and make trips to Vegas or wherever I needed to go, fly someplace and drive off to my local casino. But yeah, that was tricky. And I'm able to get a lot more hours in now that I retired just about a little over a year ago as a teacher.
Okay. So you were getting in 100, 150 hours a year. That's doable. I mean, that's tough from LA because you got to drive a couple hours to get anywhere. But you made it work. I guess as a teacher, you have summers off too.
Yes, that would help too, right? And the Christmas holidays, things like that. Can
you sort of explain how because you said you basically have been able to generate a decent amount, like 148 per hour as a part-time player. How is it sort of jump-started your retirement plans?
It made it possible for me to retire. If I wouldn't have gotten to BJA, I would still be working as a teacher right now. I would definitely not have retired last year because I looked at how much it cost to live here. It's really expensive. And I just wasn't going to be able to make enough money to be comfortable. I would be able to pay my bills and just sit in my house. That would be it if I retired. And so it was seeing this work for a few years before I actually retired, seeing the money that I was making doing this part-time. And I thought, well, I can actually retire now because of this income that I have as an AP. It's enough for me to be comfortable so that I don't have to work 5 more years as a teacher to get a comfortable retirement. I was able to retire last year and it's worked. I mean, this is a solid part-time income for me that if I wasn't doing this, I'd be, working at Trader Joe's or something. And that's some part-time job someplace. And so this is a very lucrative part-time income that I can work when I want. I don't have any boss telling me what to do.
I'm assuming you have your bankroll separate from your living expenses, all that stuff.
Oh yeah. Just got a safe, everything's safely put away. And that's just for work, and it's nice having that chunk of cash as an emergency fund because before I had a bankroll, I never had an emergency fund, for anything. I was just barely getting by as a teacher out here. There was no savings of really any kind. And now I've got this so that, if there is an emergency of some kind and I need to dip into that, okay, I can do that. But it's just for some kind of dire emergency. Fortunately, that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. I'm sure you want to, keep that bankroll, keep the risk at 1% and keep that bankroll solid so you can keep your dollar per hour above $100. It'd be doable, but it'd be tough if you had to step backwards a bit, if you had to dip into it, as opposed to having that set bankroll risk at 1% and EV at a pretty decent level.
Exactly. Yeah.
Every career job has its pros and cons. I was wondering, when it comes to blackjack versus teaching, what are some things about blackjack that are a major relief compared to the hardships of teaching?
The flexibility is really, really big. I mean, as a public school music teacher, you're on a schedule and you follow that schedule. You have no options. There's very little flexibility of any kind in when you work. With being an AP, I've got the flexibility to decide, how much time do I want to put in and where do I want to work and when do I want to work. So it's the flexibility that's really attractive. I enjoy what I do as an AP. I enjoy beating the casino at their own game and how they just swindle everybody else. Every person that walks in the door is just getting swindled by this casino, and I'm not. That's really great, and I feel really good about that. And I feel like I'm doing something really positive, whereas so much of what they're doing is entirely negative in so many different ways. Negative to the community and to the dealers that they pay minimum wage, and then expecting the players to tip them because they're too cheap to pay them a living wage. It's things like that.
Do you have hourly goals now that this is your main gig?
Yeah, I usually go to my local a couple times, 2-3 times a month, and I generally go on a trip someplace for a 3 or 4 night stay. I might do that twice a month, sometimes once a month. It depends on the time of the year, but yeah, generally, usually a 4-night maximum is a typical trip for me.
You've mentioned a few times about you have a local. I was wondering, what things have you done? Do you think that's the reason why you've been able to keep that local?
Oh, good question. Well, one thing I do that I don't split tens, for example, my locals. They're tribals, and I just want to kind of avoid that. And that costs me EV by making that decision. And I would recommend definitely splitting the tens. Definitely splitting those tens. But for me to have the longevity of my local, I don't do that. I try to keep my bet spread to about a 1-8 in the local. That's kind of what I'm doing with keeping the local.
Is there like a win limit or something? that you kind of walk on for the day at your local too, or does it just sort of work out so you don't have any extreme wins or losses with the 1-8 spread?
Yeah, I'll generally find I can go about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours tops. I really can't stick around longer than that, or there's going to be heat and some kind of problems with asking me to leave.
Was it a pretty big milestone to cross six figures with this after 20 years of breaking even at best?
It was a huge milestone for me. It was just such a relief, and I was just so happy with myself and with what I've learned here, and that I was able to actually do this. And it really changed. Like I said, it changed so much for me. It changed everything. Was being able to reach that goal and being able to retire and to enjoy my retirement and feel financially stable as a retired teacher in Los Angeles. It's really exciting.
Did you do anything to celebrate?
Well, I told my girlfriend. She was pretty happy. So,
go out to a nice dinner or anything?
Yeah, we did. Sure, we did.
I don't know. That was one of the highlights of running a blackjack team. I mean, from our first little team, we would do these bankroll dinners. I'm sure we got it from the idea from some other blackjack team, but doing something to celebrate those milestones was a lot of my best memories.
Oh yeah.
So if you could go back and talk to yourself when you were a beginner, what advice would you give?
Make sure that you have a bankroll that you don't need for your basic living expenses. That's really critical. And find other APs to talk to and network with. That's really important too. Understanding risk of ruin and understanding a bet spread and having fun. Just having a really good time with what you're doing and getting out and seeing the city. You know, if you're going someplace, don't just spend all your time in a casino. You know, get out, get some fresh air, see the sights, and enjoy that journey.
Going to the casino for those 20 years was a little bit about having fun. You said drinking or partying. Do you think that the younger you would have listened to the successful AP Johno?
Yeah, I think he would have. If he would have gotten to know me and really sat down with me and listened to me. I'm not sure about the drinking part. He probably would have kept on drinking, but I think he would have taken my advice. You know, unfortunately, there wasn't anybody around to talk to.
Yeah, I think that's the tricky thing with this is you just have to have all the information. And I mean, you could like go to the bookstore and buy 3 books, excluding Colin Jones's 21st Century Card Counter. But you could buy like 3 books, read through all of them, and still be missing a big key piece of information that's specific to like where you're playing and your bet spread and things. And it can just like either wipe you out or have you kind of on a hamster wheel for a long time.
Yeah, and that's just it. I think what Colin's done here is he's really got to found out what an AP needs to do to make this work. Whereas a lot of other books are talking about cover or other things. They're not putting it all together in a usable format.
Yeah. And speaking for myself, it's like I had the information. I was a BJA member and I still didn't use all the information correctly. And I just quickly wanted to go out there and start playing right away. And that didn't work. So that's the other thing too, is having the patience to like go through all the material slowly, carefully. And
I think that's where other people come in because, I mean, I read books too, but sometimes you forget something that you'd read, or, you know, you don't know how serious something really is until someone that has that experience can correct you or point it out, or you have those failures and then you ask someone. And how many times have we seen it, Joe, where we see what the person isn't seeing, even though, maybe they did see the videos or read the books or whatever, but they're still just not seeing it, and someone else can point that out. It is so important to have access to other people to really sustainably do this at the level needed to make money at it.
Yeah, and you can fool yourself, you know, like I did for many years. You know, I was really fooling myself without being tested out by anybody else, you know, by thinking that I knew what I was doing when I didn't, to the level that I needed to be a winning player. I just didn't have that together.
That's true. I think about that a lot that it could be dangerous if people have all the information and have a self-confidence, because information doesn't mean you have a good game. You have to have both. You have to have the information and that perfect game that I don't know how many people really want to know if they have a perfect game. They maybe want the self-confidence of, oh, I know the information, and then can go out and play and have fun and then blame variance if they're losing or whatever, whatever it may be. But yeah, you need the information, but also you took the step where, got tested out, failed, got back to work, and got to that point where your game was perfect. Your story would be completely different if you hadn't taken the initiative to get all the way to perfect. So for aspiring card counters listening, are there any advice you want to pass to them before they make some of the mistakes you've made or the things you've learned over the decades?
Well, I guess believe in yourself and what you're doing. Trust the math of basic strategy and the high-low counting system. It works. Understand bankroll requirements and the risk of ruin. I guess I would say, the negative variance will go away eventually if your game is solid. And the only way to find out if your game is solid is to have someone test you out. You need to think in terms of EV and that you're in this for the long haul because it's really a long-term investment. I guess you need to get to know other APs because they'll help you through the tough times. Also, just don't get too excited about big wins or too sad about big losses. Just be cool about everything. As hard as that is, you just got to stay cool. You got to stay calm. You got to be happy. You got to smile, no matter how bad it is some days. Take some time from the casino to see the city and just have a good time. It's fun. It's a fun game.
Nice. I have one last question. What's harder, perfecting card counting or perfecting playing the guitar or playing the piano?
I'd say piano or guitar, certainly, are much more difficult in a lot of ways. They take longer, but there's a different type of thinking going on with playing a musical instrument. But in many ways, being an AP is quite similar. There's a lot of creativity that we have to do. We have to make decisions. We have to be creative in everything that we're doing. How we approach the cage, how we try to cash out our chips. We have to think creatively. We have to think creatively when we're at the table, when we're getting back. Everything that we're doing is on the spot. We have to think on our toes. We have to be aware. We have to pay attention. And so there's a lot of creative things going on. Just like when playing piano. If you're playing piano or guitar, you have to improvise. You have to be able to make things up on the spot sometimes. So there's a lot of similarities there. And they're both quite difficult. They both take time. They take more time than you think. A lot of people think they should be able to play piano in 30 minutes, or guitar in an hour, or be able to count cards, just read a book and there you go. And that's all wrong. Counting cards and playing music are challenging things that take a lot of time, take a while to figure out.
And they both take kind of this being willing to grind through the monotony or the boredom of practice. Fortunately, card counting, there is a limit of just how good you need to get to that you don't need to be better than. Whereas with a musical instrument, there's always someone better. There's always a next level to try to achieve. With card counting, I don't have to count through a deck of cards in 5 seconds, but I could practice my whole life and never play guitar as well as Eddie Van Halen or, Yngwie Malmsteen or whoever it may be. Well, Johno, thanks for sharing your story with us. And I'm glad that you put it all together, even if it took longer than you wish it would have. And that you've seen the fruit of a perfect game, perfect money management, not tipping away your edge, all the things that you had to learn. I'm glad that it's been working out for you. Thanks for sharing your story with us. And if people want to learn more about Advantage Play, card counting, you can go to blackjackapprenticeship.com.